Rob the host with his mic like a knife. Cut through the dark, slice stories of life. Whisper shiver down the hall tonight. Phantoms aching for a chance to ignite.
Hi, this is Rob here on Oopsallghost, and we have a special guest here, Nate, who's had a lot of stories to share with me already, and we're going to go through some of his stories here live on the podcast, and I'm so excited. Nate.
Hey, how are you doing, Rob?
Welcome.
Thank you.
You told me a couple stories, and we want to focus on your wedding anniversary. You went to Italy.
Absolutely, yeah. So 2 years ago, my wife and I got married. And instead of getting married here in Ontario, we decided that we would go to Italy. And we were there for about 3 weeks, Italy and France as well when we were there. So we got married on April 2nd of 2 years ago, 2023, in Sanremo, Italy. And the first night on our honeymoon, we went to a city on the northwest coast of Italy, Sanremo. Loved it. Anybody who's ever been to Old Montreal before, Sanremo is like an entire city of Old Montreal, right on the coastline. I just eat that stuff up. I just absolutely love it. So we'd been in Sanremo for a couple of days. We would always come out the hotel door and just turn left and start walking into Sanremo that way and experiencing what there was. And on this one particular morning as we were leaving, I said to my wife, why don't we turn right this time and see what's going on at that side of Sanremo. So we've been walking for a few minutes and noticed that there was this old abandoned, I don't know, maybe like a 3 or 4 story old square rectangular stone kind of hotel. And it was all abandoned, no more windows, no more doors. But as we walked by that, my body just went all into pins and needles. I kind of refer to it as my ghostometer. And so I, as we walked by, I kind of laughed about that and said to my wife, oh, my ghostometer just went off. And we went on with the rest of the day, didn't think anything else of it. And just as quickly as all that came, it went away. That night, we go to bed. And in the middle of the night, I get woken up by my wife. And she is in an absolute panic. And she said, we just had a visitor. Now, my mind immediately went to someone broke into the room and we had a visitor. And when I get her to talk a little bit more about it, find out that it's like a ghostly spiritual visitor. And yeah, and so she's describing this to me, and it was down at the foot of my corner of the bed that it was just kind of pacing back and forth around the corner. And she said it was tall, all black, looked like it had a black top hat on as well too. A couple of times it sat down on the corner of the bed on my side.
It actually sat down.
She said, yeah, that it sat down there and then got up and kept walking around. And then after however much time, she couldn't tell me how much time it was. To her it felt like all night, but however much time would have passed, it just all of a sudden wasn't there anymore. And she wasn't able to wake me up while that was going on. It wasn't until after it disappeared that she was able to wake me, and that's when she told me we just had a visitor. So as you know from talking before, I'm a skeptic about things. And as much as I also believe that there are experiences that people have, I want to know the natural explanation first. And until I can rule out a natural explanation, I don't jump to something supernatural just happened to us. So I immediately went to, are you sure you weren't having a dream? Maybe it was a very vivid dream and that's why you couldn't move. And she was insistent, no, that I was awake and I was trying to move to wake you, but I couldn't do that. And then she threw out a little piece of extra information. She said that as it walked around the corner of the bed each time, that the floorboards creaked. And I thought, well, that's kind of interesting because we've been here for a couple of days and I hadn't heard anything myself. But sure enough, the next morning when I got out of bed and walked away from the bedroom, the floorboards creaked down at the bottom corner of the bed. And so that for me kind of ruled out this was just a dream, because how do you dream something like that? And now I don't know if that was something new that happened as a result of the spiritual visit that happened in the night, or if it had been there all along and we just hadn't noticed it, hadn't paid attention to it. But anyway, so that was day one. There was actually 3 days in a row at Lolly Palace was the name of the hotel we were staying at in Sanremo. We experienced something 3 nights in a row. So that the first day was that, walking by the old abandoned hotel, get the ghostometer going off, and then the visitor in the night happened.
All in like 24
that was
hours.
all within that was all the nighttime of that same day went. So, that kind of begs the question then, when my ghostometer went off, did I attract something that had actually been following us around for the rest of the day and came back to Lolly Palace with us, or was it in Lolly Palace? Of course, we'll never know those answers.
Well, you're telling me that you've heard the word like magnetic energy?
Yeah. So I have a friend who's a medium, and she describes me as having almost like you said, a magnetic personality. Spirits feel welcome being around me. Also had other experiences when I lived up in Thunder Bay, and there was an actual paranormal team that came in and did an investigation. They said the same thing, that they said this isn't going to be your first time having any kind of experiences like this, because you draw them and they feel safe around you. So from those 2 different sources, hearing that, so not overly surprised.
Right? It's like, here's the rodeo, buddy, you're in it.
That's right. So I mentioned there was something 3 nights in a row that went on in Sanremo. So that was the first night. So the second night, we at the time used to finish our day by having a tea at the end of each night. And when we were at Lolly Palace, we were on the 3rd floor. And on the 2nd floor is where the communal teapot was, at the end of a hall. And that hallway that it was down was all the offices for the people in the hotel, in the palace that worked there. So it would have been, I don't know, maybe 10:30 at night. And I go down the stairwell, which is right in the middle of the building, and the hallways all run off to the left and right off of the stairwell to go to the rest of Lolly Palace that way. And as you enter in each hallway, there's motion sensors for the lights. And it's their way of saving electricity, I presume. It's not until you go into the hallway do you trigger that for the lights to come on, as opposed to the hallways of hotels here where 24/7 the lights are burning. So I go down to the 2nd floor. It's well past the point in time when any of the staff would have been there, other than the staff at the front desk. And I noticed that the lights are on down that hall. And I thought, well, that's kind of odd for this time of day. But I didn't give much more thought to it. And I went around the corner to go down to the teapot, and I noticed a little bit more specific about the lights, that it was just at the very end of the hall where the lights were on above the teapot area. It wasn't the entire stretch of hallway that was lit up.
The picture there is like it's a commune set in this hotel you were in.
At the very end of the hallway, yeah.
That was the only lights on. So if somebody walked, they would trigger all the lights.
They should have triggered on all the lights. And we'd been in there before. This wasn't my first time going down that hall. And when you walked in that hall, the whole way trigger, all the lights came on at the same time. So for it to be just down at the very end, right away, that kind of caught my attention as odd.
Yeah.
Odd enough that I actually didn't go down to make the cup of tea. I went upstairs to get my wife, and I said, "You got to come with me because this just happened." And I'm kind of weirded out a little bit here by what's going on, and especially thinking about what just happened the night before with this top hat visitor that my wife saw and was telling me about. So she came down with me, and this time when we went down there, the whole stretch of lights turned on normal. And we boiled our water and went back upstairs and got back into the room. And now again, there could be the skeptic out there that's saying, well, there might have been something going on, and fair enough, there might have been. I don't know, but I look at that as, so this is kind of a second weird thing that's happened 2 nights in a row. Whether it's electrical, whether it's supernatural, whether whatever, but it was definitely odd. And nothing like that happened so far since we've been in Lolly Palace. So that was the second night. The third night, to me, it got even stranger, because I went down at the same time of night to go and make that cup of tea, to boil the water. And as I was going down the central stairwell, I could hear music coming from the hallway of the one that we were just talking about a minute ago with the light that was on down at the end where the teapot is, the kettle is. But it wasn't music just like the radio that was playing. It was like, I described it as kind of like the old Victorian era when they have like a ball and the chamber music is playing, whatever, for the people dancing. Like, that's what it sounded like, that kind of music. But there's no lights on down to the hall at all this time. It's complete darkness, which it should have been because there was nobody down there at all. I thought maybe there's someone in here working late and they're in their office and they're just listening to the music. So again, I didn't give it a whole lot of thought until I came around the corner, and I hadn't entered into the hallway yet to trigger it, but I could see down the hallway and there was no light coming out from underneath of any of the doors, which are all the offices. The other thing that was really weird about that is that as soon as I went around the corner of the hallway, the music stopped. It was just, it was gone. We didn't even have tea that night.
Jeez, no kidding.
I didn't even venture to go down the hallway when that happened. I just went upstairs and told my wife, this is what happened, and yeah, I'm done with it. I'm not going back down there again.
No more tea, please.
That's right.
No more. Wow.
So those were our three nights in Sanremo. The next night, and for all the rest of the time that we were in both Italy and in France for the last time, because we were gone for 3.5 weeks. There was no other experiences that we had, but there were those 3 nights in a row that happened. And now again, is there a natural explanation for any of those things, or is it all supernatural explanation? Ultimately, we're never going to know that. If anybody listening has insight on what could have explained those that is still within the natural realm, by all means, I would be totally open to hearing that. Because I would love to rule out anything, that is just a natural explanation before jumping to anything further. But as it stands, regardless of how, those 3 nights are very distinct, unique nights that we weren't expecting to experience while we were gone, that's for sure.
No, like the fear level of me hearing your stories and like watching your eyes and experiencing it. Holy moly, I would have checked out of those because you were already there for a few days before this stuff happened. And it was just the one day you turned right.
Well, that's right, yeah. And so when we were turning left to go into that part of Sanremo, we hadn't had any of these experiences. Like I said, it wasn't just tie everything all back in again. It wasn't until that day that we turned right and we walked by that old abandoned hotel and my ghostometer went off. That seemed to be the trigger for those next 3 nights. Of things that were happening.
There's your open door scene right there. Yeah. Oh, man. I also remember you were telling me that you like to experience like psychics once in a while with your wife. And you had that one that related to this story.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so my wife and I are 2 totally different people when we go and see a psychic. We typically go once a year for a couple's reading, and it's more just like for the... we would never, base our future, investments or whatever off of what something says. It's for us, it's entertainment. But my wife and I, we kind of approach the situation a little bit differently. They'll put out a question. I don't know, maybe something like, "Your mother's dead, isn't she?" And my wife would answer that question by going, "Yes, she is. How did you know?" Where I would answer that question is, "Well, you tell me." Mm-hmm. And so I don't volunteer information. I guess it's my way of making it a little bit more credible with the things that they're saying instead of giving them things that they can, feed off of and just further explore, and me still giving answers that way. So I had been very limited with things that I was saying. This was, I don't know, maybe half an hour or so into the reading that this experience you were just mentioning happened. We had not mentioned anything about having just been married. We had not mentioned anything about being in Italy. Had definitely not mentioned anything about these 3 experiences that we just talked about happening. And just kind of out of the blue, this medium that we were seeing, he said, when you were in Italy, you brought someone back with you.
No, no thanks.
And I was like, what do you mean when we were in Italy we brought someone back? Because again, I wasn't going to give them anything, right? Mm-hmm. I'm going to make you work for it here. And he's like, well, when you had that visitor in the night, he came back with you. Now, he went further to say it was a priest. I didn't mention that to you the first time that we were talking. And so the interesting thing is that, just to kind of start to tie things in together here a little bit more, is that I did look into, on Google Earth, the Sanremo area to find that old abandoned hotel, and sure enough it is there on Google Earth. And I tried to look it up with you when we first met, but I was using Google Maps, not on Google Earth. But it actually, it was there. It had its name. I wish I could remember the name. I should have looked it up before we came here today. But it's right there, and you can Google it by its name, and it gives the history of what it was. And it was used a lot during World War II, and there were a lot of priests that stayed there during the Second World War. So I suppose it's plausible that a priest could have died there and is still attached to there, and that's who came and followed back. Suppose, thinking about, I'm not Catholic myself, so, I'm just trying to go by, I guess they do have kind of hats, don't they? And they'd be kind of tall and sort of shrouded in their cape, kind of a, so if you're seeing that at night as a black figure, kind of plausible that it would kind of match. But again, tie back into that natural explanation. How does this guy know to say any of that stuff? Right?
I didn't give him any info on this, right?
No, did not. And he went a little bit further with things as well, too. He said, he's still with you. You don't need to be afraid. He's more of like a spirit guide here to help you guys and protect you guys than anything that you need to be afraid about. And then that's just kind of where it got dropped. And it didn't get discussed anymore with him. We, of course, had our own conversation driving home after about it. But with that time, with that reading that we were getting, that was just that. But those kind of things really interest me with psychics when you talk to them, because there's a lot of me, just to be 100% real on things here, and again, the skeptic in me. There's so much about what goes on that I know. If you're really good at reading people and you're really good at taking the odds on how something's going to play out, that you can present that to someone in a way that they're going to believe you're having some kind of spiritual connection that's leading to that. So I believe that. However, at the same time as saying that, when you've not given anybody any information about something and they come up with that specific of a detail just out of the blue.
Yeah, where's it coming from?
Exactly. Yeah. So, so that was all. That was all of that. So that was 2 years ago. Do you want to hear what just happened to us?
Yeah, I do.
Okay, so we this previous last weekend, we went to St. Anne's Spa, which is just the other side of Peterborough. So it's a couple hours, or an hour and a half, I guess, east of Toronto. Very nice spa. Highly recommend it for anybody who's wanting to go and get away, for an afternoon or stay overnight like we did or whatever. Great location. They treat you like kings and queens. And so we go in there to celebrate our second anniversary. And as we're driving in, there was this old cemetery that you drive past right before you get to St. Anne's Spa. And it's one of these country cemeteries. There's only like maybe 12 or 18 tombstones that are there, and very small that way. Very old looking tombstones as well too. So it's been an established cemetery, been there for quite some time. And I said to my wife, "Oh, they've got a cemetery right here. We should come back tonight with our spirit box." Because that's another thing that we like to do. Go to cemeteries or wherever there's reported of being haunted activity, and we'll bring out our spirit box and see what kind of conversation we can have. So she just kind of laughed it off, because every time I say that a lot, but it doesn't really translate into it's going to happen. It's more just, there's Trev saying this again.
Right. I feel that. The wife's like, you got another project, don't you?
Yeah, there it is. So, so she just kind of laughed it off when I said that, and we went in and checked in, and I got talking to one of the staff, and I said, "Do you guys have any hauntings? This is kind of an old, like 100-plus-year-old building is the main building of this spa that it's been built off over time." And the staff confirmed that if you go and check on Google, you can actually read different people's experiences that they've had there. And I guess it's just St. Anne's hauntings. If you look that up, you can find it.
Like 10 out of 10 ghost
So
review.
yeah, exactly, eh? Halloween night. This is where you're going for your spa. Yeah. So the staff mentions that to us, and that kind of just conversation just ended there. Mm-hmm. We went on with our day, and this was Friday of last weekend. Went on with the rest of the day on Friday. Had a great time there. Go to bed, and we're in a cottage. And sure enough, the cottage is right beside this cemetery that I was just mentioning. And I was like, how perfect is that? But still, we didn't go out and, get our spirit box out or anything like that. But that night, at some point in the middle of the night, I woke up from a light being on in our cabin. And the cabin was just kind of described here a little bit. It's kind of like a one-room building that, the bedroom and the living room are kind of right connected to itself. And there's one of those short little sort of 4-foot half walls that kind of gives you a kitchen area. But everything is all open concept.
Right.
The light that woke me up came from the kitchen area. It was lights that were underneath the cupboards, the kitchen cupboards that were in there. And I knew I'd turned all the lights off when we went to bed. Didn't know if maybe my wife had been up to go to the bathroom and turn the light on or whatever. I woke her up and she said no, she hadn't turned any lights on. I went out over bed, found the light switch, and now interesting, it's in the on position. So I flick it down, get back into bed, go back to sleep, start thinking about the conversation with the staff, how there's been haunted experiences that some of the guests have had and that you could read about them on Google. And I was kind of, to be honest, a little odded out with things. Didn't quite know how to feel about that, being somewhere and an experience going on again, right like there. I wasn't yet starting to think about Sanremo, even though I probably should have, because now we're celebrating our anniversary, so it's like 2 years later, almost to the day, of what happened in Sanremo.
True.
So the lights go on, and I turn them off in the middle of the night. A little while later, I wake up to the sound of footsteps in our cabin. And it's not like it was attached to other rooms or like above us or anything like that. I just heard someone through a wall, and there was definite sound of footsteps inside the cabin with us. Well, by this point in time, I was like, this is cool.
Oh, boy.
And that didn't last for very long. Just maybe, I don't even know if it would have been a minute. But definitely enough to wake me up, and laying there awake listening to it, could still hear it. And it was coming from down in the living room portion of the cabin, so down past the foot, where the foot of the bed would have been that way. Ended up falling back asleep again. Only a third time to be woken up by a flickering of light that was going on inside our cabin. They've got, it's gas stoves to heat them, but it's inside an old like wood stove. So just gives that rustic feeling instead of just a glass insert fireplace in the wall or something, eh? But now all of a sudden the fireplace is on. And I'm like, again, to my wife, I wake her up, I'm like, did you turn the fireplace on? And she's like, no, I haven't been out of bed. And I'm like, well, kind of gesture to it. I go, it's on, and I just woke up and there it's on. And she said, well, I remember reading about there's this slide bar to adjust the temperature, and it's got like a thermostat like at home, so if it gets too cold, it'll kick on like your furnace does at home. Did you slide that up? And I'm like, no, I didn't even touch that. This is the first I've heard anything about it. And then she said that she hadn't touched it either. And Friday night wasn't all that cold of a night in the Peterborough area. So I don't know at what point in time that would just normally kick on, but neither one of us had slid that up. And when we checked in the morning, it was all the way down to the far left. So it was in the absolute lowest position that it could go on. So again, I'll throw that one out there. Is there a natural explanation for that? Maybe there is. Maybe it just was the natural setting of things for when that would have come on, whether anybody was in the building or not. Or was it something that was just a little bit more to that? Because lights don't just turn themselves on. You don't just hear footsteps. So those first two things that woke me up, 100%, I no doubt about that those things actually were caused to have happened, that there wasn't just some natural phenomena that took place that turned that on. The fireplace one, I'll leave that open to interpretation, and I'll be willing to accept anybody's explanation one way or the other without arguing them on that point for the fireplace one. But definitely those first two experiences that I just explained. So that it's kind of interesting. Those happen almost to the day, 2 years apart. Those, and just talking, I'm thinking in threes too. In Sanremo, it was 3 days in a row, and when we were gone for our anniversary, it was 3 things on the same night. I don't know if there's any significance to that or not, but just talking here, that the threes just kind of jumped to my mind there.
If I heard that right, like, so did you find anything like the first year anniversary, or was
Nothing.
it just the 2 years?
Nothing that we remember, but we were home for our first anniversary. We didn't go anywhere.
Right.
So whether that's the reason why, or I don't know, maybe every 2 years we're going to be, next year's going to be quiet, but the year after that, someone's going to be here again.
No, man, the fact that you can go back to sleep, like, I'd be up all night. Like, I would have been like just shitting bricks. Easy to put it.
Well, interesting to say. So the next morning, we turned on our spirit box inside the cabin, but we didn't get any answers of any kind of anybody. So they either weren't talking or they weren't still there. We never did have an opportunity to go across the road to the cemetery like I would have liked. I would have enjoyed that. I always have fun with those opportunities when they come up, but that really wasn't the focus of why we were gone to the spa for the weekend. But yeah, so that's
like even in the middle of the night, like was there any like reach to go for your spirit box there, or was it just like, I'm ready for like my R&R I much deserve?
I was in bed asleep.
That's right.
Yeah, like I said, so when the whole thing with the lights in the kitchenette area, that kind of spooked me out a little bit, but not enough to keep me awake. Just enough to kind of like, well, that's kind of odd, because that doesn't happen on its own. But then I went back to sleep, and then when I woke up from hearing the footsteps, I was intrigued with that then. And I was almost, to be honest with you, a little disappointed that the footsteps ended as soon as they did. But then I went back to sleep again, and then, woke up that third time with the fireplace on, and
everything just happening right there.
Yeah.
And you were like, I'm out already.
Yeah.
Like, this is my break time, spirit.
Meanwhile, we'll find that there's staff in the background that are doing all this by remote control or something.
Right? That's interesting. You were telling me a story about where you had that instinct to pull out your spirit box, and you guys did on the side of the road.
Oh yeah, well there's been a few different times that we've done that. We've just kind of felt that we should pull them out. But I think maybe the time that I might have told you about previously when we were talking, we were in Lucan. My family lives in Goderich, and so we were going to visit them in Goderich. And I believe it's called St. James Cemetery. It's where the original burial place was for the Donnelly family after they were massacred, was in this cemetery. They've since been moved, but it's apparently still a hotbed of activity for orbs, things like that. I have been there, not with my wife, but with someone before my wife and I even met. We went one night and took pictures from there, went to the homestead where the massacre happened, took pictures from there as well too. Got all kinds of crazy pictures of orbs from both the cemetery and the old farmstead. So I must have had told my wife about the orb experience, because she was the one that was like, as we were approaching the cemetery, she was like, well, why don't we pull in? We've got some time, and see if there's anything that responds to us on the spirit box. Mm-hmm. So we did. We entered the cemetery. Very ritualistic when entering a place like a cemetery, and starting to use the spirit box of identifying who we are, that we're just here to visit and not meaning to interrupt anybody or cause any kind of trouble or anything along those lines, and then just open an invitation. Is there anybody that would like to talk to us? And after I did all that, we heard on the spirit box the word "here." Now sometimes you can get a few words strung along in a row on spirit boxes. Most of the time, it's our experience anyways that it's like a one-word response that you get. So when I heard "here," I was like, well, thank you for identifying that you're here and you'd like to talk to us. Is there anything you'd like to tell me about yourself? To which then heard the response, "young." I immediately took that as, the way I interpreted that was that they were young when they passed away. So I asked that. I said, well, did you die when you were young? And there was no response to that at all. While I'm still trying to talk and ask other questions through the spirit box, my wife is starting to just kind of roam around and look at the tombstones, the different markers. And the one that I was standing right beside, I was beside the back piece of it, so you couldn't see anything that was engraved in it. Right. My wife had walked around the other side, and I'm still trying to flesh out this whole thing. Were you young when you passed away? Was it because you were sick? Something tragic happened to you? I'm trying to see if I can get any kind of responses to anything like that. There's nothing coming across the spirit box. And my wife says, babe, you need to come around here and look at this. And I walked around and look, and it was a husband and wife that their last name was Young. And that's the cemetery, or that's the grave marker that I'm actually standing at when I put out the invitations. Or anybody here? And then you get here, and then is there anything you want to tell me about yourself? Young. Well, it turns out they're telling them my name is Young.
You're like, are you a little kid? No.
But we've had different experiences like that. We were in Perth, Ontario, back in, I guess, the end of November, beginning of December. We went to see what their Christmas display was like. We had seen on TikTok that Perth is supposed to be one of the prettiest places in Ontario at Christmas time to go to. Well, we got there too soon the weekend that we went, because there wasn't a single Christmas light up anywhere to be seen.
Yeah, that stinks, doesn't it?
But it was still nice to get away for the weekend. And again, my wife was like, well, I remember when we were driving past here earlier, there's a cemetery up here. Do you want to pull out the spirit box and see if anything wants to talk to us? I was like, sure. And there was a little bit of a conversation that was going on back and forth. Nothing that I specifically remember about that part of the conversation. But at the end of things, when we close a session using the spirit box, I'm also very specific with things that I say to make sure that things are closed off, that to let the spirits know that they're not to follow us, but they're to stay where they are. And so I was going through and I was saying all of that, and right immediately, in response to me saying that across the spirit box, we heard why. And it came across like a challenge. Both my wife and I thought that we were being challenged as, oh, why can't I come with you?
The adrenaline.
And so I'm like, you're not coming with me. This is where you belong. You're not to leave the parameters of the cemetery. I like to kind of invoke, God's name, Jesus' name, kind of as a authority to saying what I'm saying, almost kind of a thing, right? So kind of did that as well too. Things went quiet on the spirit box, and so we were comfortable to get back in the car and leave. And a couple minutes down the road, my ghostometer went off on me again.
The chill.
Yeah,
saying, right?
yeah. And so I looked at my wife and I said, it came with us. I can feel it. And so I pulled the car over to the side of the road and kind of had a stern talking of, get back to where you were, and do I need to drive back, but you're not coming with us, and again, invoke God's name, that you're not, by his power, you're not coming with us, and those kind of things, what I say. And then just instantaneously doing that it all, the chills and it all went away. Harris was right back down in normal again, and I was like, okay, we're good to go. And we started driving again, and that was the end of that.
Like you were driving down the road, you felt the prickles.
Yeah.
Until you stopped and did this.
And then said it get it a second time. You're not welcome to come. You're to go back to the cemetery. Are you going to go on your own, or do I need to drive you back to get you there? And then saying all that, it just
gone. Oh.
So it's almost like this was a stubborn one, and I'm going to try to see if I can catch a ride back wherever you came from. Yeah, because you don't want to bring anything back home.
No, you're saying a ritual going towards and out of it.
That's right. And that's, for me, that's a benefit of having a friend who's a medium, because those are some of the things that she's taught me. Not only to say that, but also what to say. Right. And how to say it. And, I'm not going to go into that on here. I don't want to be educating anybody to try and go out and do something and then them do it wrong and bring something back with them that they shouldn't be doing. That's not, what I'm advocating for anybody or anything that way. So I'm not going to get into the specifics of it that way, but I do consider myself very blessed to have, actually, other than my wife, it's my closest friend in life, this lady that's a medium. And we've been friends since grade 8. And it's, invaluable having someone like that kind of in your corner.
Especially, like, we only hit, like, a fraction of the stories you told me, let alone you're like, there's so much more to it.
Oh, there's so many things that have gone on.
Like, just to live through that. Like, oh, you watch those horror movies and goosebumps, but, like, to be physically there, like, I can feel, I've had probably about 5 or 6 goosebumps of you retelling these stories to me, like...
Yeah, sometimes they can get a little... They can test where your metal's coming from for sure sometimes, but no, for the most part it's been good experiences. We do have experiences that happen at our home. We'll hear footsteps coming up and down the stairwell. Sometimes in the morning I'll have left for work already. My wife will hear, me being noisy down in the kitchen, and she'll get up out of bed to come and ask me to quiet down and see that the car's gone and there's no one there, but all that racket was just being made in the kitchen. There's been a couple of different times where she's told me that she's heard me talking behind her as she's been coming up the stairs and turns around to continue the conversation. I'm not there. So we have things go on in our home, and we've never really felt that it's been anything threatening or malicious, so we're kind of okay with it.
You find, like, with those, do you get your ghost radar, you're saying, or is it more like, even like sounding more of a mellow energy to it?
It's more, it doesn't really trigger my ghostometer anymore. It did at first, but it's almost, I don't know how to explain it. It's almost like, there's just someone else that shares the house with you. And so you just know that, Frank's here, Sally's here, or whoever it turns out to be, is,
Yeah.
There's been some times that things have been, the dog's gotten scared, or I've been gone and something's happened that's left my wife scared. She'll tell me about those, and then I kind of have my conversation again that, hey, it's not cool that you're, this is our space that you're in. We're not in your space. And if you're going to stay here, you're not going to scare my wife. You're not going to scare the dog. You're not going to do anything that's going to cause any damage or anything. If you're willing to abide by those, then we're happy to have you here. If not, then we can, take whatever steps we need to let you move on somewhere else. And it's never gone past, having to do that once or twice.
Oh, that's good.
So, yeah.
That's really good. Nate, honestly, thank you again for telling your stories here. I think we'll end it with those great stories you told me.
Yeah, for sure.
Man. And you say you got plenty more, so we may have you back on. Is there anything you'd like to plug in, like Instagram or someone you'd like to mention? Or
I don't think so at this point in time. So I would have mentioned specifics about the paranormal team up in Thunder Bay that I have told you about, and I think I mentioned them briefly earlier when we were talking. But when I had reached out to the lead of that team after you and I first met, and he's actually retired from doing stuff now. Yeah, so he's because of that. I think I'm probably not gonna throw out a plug for them that way. Oh, why not? Yeah. So the Seabass Paranormal, they've still got stuff. So it's Chasing Bones and Specters Paranormal, and just the acronym is CBAS. So Seabass Paranormal. That's who I was involved with up in Thunder Bay with the very first things that we were talking about, and maybe that's another time we get together to talk about everything that happened up there. But definitely, yeah. If you're looking into things, check out what Seabass has on. They've got lots of stuff on YouTube.
Yeah, it sounded like they really helped you out there when you're going through all that stuff.
Big time. Big time, yeah.
Is there anything you'd like to tell the people of the computer?
stay safe. If you're gonna be doing anything, make sure you do things knowledgeably. Don't just go and download a spirit box and open up that world. Definitely, from things that I've again heard from people much more in the know than me, things like Ouija boards, don't go there. That's you're just opening doors you don't want to open with those kind of things. But you have the experiences around you that go on in life, and you're not quite sure what to think about it. Well, maybe just think that there might be more than what you can logically explain going on, and if you're open to it, then it's a whole new world that might be waiting there for you to experience.
100% with anything, make sure you do your research before
Absolutely.
you plug in and play.
Absolutely.
It's been phenomenal having you on here, Nate. Hopefully we can reach out and get a hold of you again there.
That's great. You know how to get in touch with me.
Awesome. All right. Rob here. That was an awesome first episode, and yeah, cool stuff, cool beats. That was awesome hearing from Nate there and his bone-chilling stories. I got like 5 or 6 goosebumps from most of those stories. It's wild to hear these, and we want to keep it going. So if you want to be here and tell your story, hit me up in the DM, and we'll try and get you on. Like and follow to hear more. Thanks, guys.
Knocking sounds when no one's near.